Think about playing a tune like walking to the park and then walking back home, and each chord is a block along the way. Now, a lot of the times when you're playing jazz, you have the urge to take a shit. But think about scales, modes, and arpeggios like a diaper. It keeps the chromatic shit in the appropriate place when you're a jazz baby. When you're a jazz toddler and you find yourself in this kind of block and you get the urge, you can find a tree and go, I just go pee on a tree. Or if you feel like you really have to shit, you can find a McDonald's. When you develop some nasty runs, you can just take your pants off and go behind the car. But there are two strategies to getting your shit together you definitely don't want to employ. Number one, be a free jazz avant-garde guy. That's the equivalent of being a fentanyl-addicted homeless person shitting down the street in San Francisco. The problem with keeping the diaper on for too long is that your playing starts to stink like shit and nobody's gonna want to play with you. So let's find out what the diaper is, how long it's appropriate to keep it on, and how to take it off and become an actual musician. Now get up on the table, pull your pants down, spread your legs, and let this lesson change you. If you think about all the possible ways that a human being can input scales and modes and arpeggios, there aren't that many. We have to use our senses. What are our senses? Some are irrelevant. We can't smell a scale. We can't taste a scale. We can touch, we can hear, and we can see. Now, there's another thing that we can do, is we can think about it. We can understand the names of the notes, and then we have to understand the locations of the notes based on a system and put it on the guitar. The way that most guitar players put themselves together is understanding and visualizing, not so much hearing. And I understand that, and I put myself together in the same way. This lesson is all about connecting it back to the hearing after you have some degree of visualizing. You have to let some of that visualizing stuff go and start sending audio signals with your brain. That's called audiating. Okay, let's start. Here is C major. This entire lesson is going to be around the Ionian mode, but it applies to every single mode, to every single chord type, to everything we do on the guitar. So there are 5 positions I can play that C chord. This is called caged. C form, A form, G form, E form, and then the D form. These give us the basic slices of harmony on the guitar, the left hand of the piano. They're not really inversions because some of them contain a lot of the same notes. They contain all the inversions. Think about them like the basketball courts that we need to learn how to hear and see inside of. Seeing is only a tool on the way to hearing. The most basic thing you can do is find the octaves inside each shape and learn how to move a scale through it. So here's C major, 1 octave in the C form. You're going to run into a thing where inside a form, there are 2 places to play the same note. That's the nature of the guitar. That B, for instance, you can play in that C form either on the G string or on the B string. You always want to send an audio signal with your brain, even when you're not mouthing it. I am going, and I'm trying to make my fingers follow that. I can use chromaticism, but I have to put my shit in between places that make sense. It's this block awareness, right? If you really have to shit, don't do it on top of a car. Do it in some backyard or alleyway. Even that's pretty nasty. It's better to find a bathroom. But in any case, you have to find things in that area. Now, something that's super helpful is to map out each area, maybe just with the scale to start and find how many octaves are in each one. pure octaves from the beginning to the end of the sound, right? I got do, 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 da, 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 da. That's the first one. Same exact sound, but now in the A form. I can play it like this. Do, 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 da, da, da. Like this. Do, 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 da, da. It's relating to the same place. So I'm not being precious about fingering. That's not really what I'm trying to do here. I'm trying to hear that octave. Now, the next area, the G form, has 2 octaves in it. One of them is this weird octave shape that has 2 strings in the middle. The octave is between the E and the G string. And then the second octave is between the G and the E string, the high E. I want to be able to hear melodies in between. Right? I want to play the same line in each of these things. Here's the E one. I have the first octave between the E and D, and then the second octave between the D and the high E. Now, in that D form, the last one, I only have 1 pure octave between the D and that B string. If I take a second to really realize how many of these octave shapes are hiding inside caged, I have a total of 7. I have 3 of the weird octaves and 4 of the West Montgomery octaves. Weird octave, weird octave, weird octave, West Montgomery octave, West Montgomery octave, West Montgomery octave, West Montgomery octave. That's the whole thing. Those West Montgomery kind of octaves have that scale in between them, and the weirder ones that some of the swing guys used to use to play, to frame their octaves, have a scale kind of going on this diagonal. It's this diagonal octave and this diagonal octave. 3 of these, 4 of these. You have to learn how to map scales in that shape. Now, players are obsessed with, let's say, 3 notes per string or position playing for the scales. But that creates a situation where you're not really hearing it against the chords in a very clear way. If you're trying to ever chord solo or just have a very surgical sense of the harmony, it's much better to just have the chords under your fingers and decorate from within them. So that creates a situation where your playing can be connected harmonically. If I'm just improvising, kind of climbing the neck of the guitar from the C shape to the A shape, to the G shape, to the E shape, to the D shape, back to the C shape. I can just take those trips. I can do it with minor chords too. You see Joe Pass do it all the time. Here's an A minor in its E minor form, D minor form, C, right? G minor form, A minor form. Right, that's an A minor form, E minor form, D minor form, E minor form. So it's right under your fingers, and this is something you can apply to diminished scale harmony, altered chords, everything. But it all starts with your ability to do this on major chords. So let's design some exercises that you can do to make sure that you're hearing things and are able to pass them through these areas of the guitar once you understand the basic grips. Take a melody, 3 to maybe 5 notes. Make your brain make it. Don't make it with your fingers. Go wah de da do wah. Now, I intellectually can understand what I'm doing after I do it. That's 7, 6, 5, 3, 7 on that C. Maybe that can help, but don't think about those intervals and find them based on note name or interval pattern and then location on the guitar. As you move to the next area, send the audio signal again. And try to cultivate that finger connection. You got that? Now let's do that with the G form. The next octave. Then the E form. And finally here, in the D form, I'm sending that dee-da-doo-doo-da, wa-da-da-doo-da. Every time you play it, you want to make sure that that audio signal is sent and everything else is riding that. That is what connects you to the moment. It's more important than note finding. It's actual playing. The playing comes from your depths, right? From your heart, whatever you want to call that thing. The next part is connecting chromaticism to that mix. You have to be able to imagine chromaticism, right? So start from a note. Way. The top of that voicing is the 7th. I hear that. I'm going to try to connect that to the 6 using a flat 7. Way, da, 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 dee, da, do, ah. That's the line. Dee da 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 dee da dee da. That's pretty cool, right? On that A form, right? I'm intellectualizing it. I'm thinking it's 7, flat 7, 6, flat 6, 5, 3, 2, 1, low 6. Right? So maybe here in the A form, I'll find it right there, but I'm still focusing on sending that audio signal again. Even after I understand what I'm doing, as I go here, I'm trying to just do this and with intuition, find where the fingers go. Let them fall in the right places. I'm inside that A form. Inside the G form. Next octave. Right? In that octave in the E form. Inside the E form, I'm not going to have that low A, so I have to play it high. I'm going to go. Here. Now, a big issue that's going to come up in your practice is that you will inevitably fuck up. So let's come up with something that I'm going to fuck up and see what I do to actually help myself. The point isn't to not fuck up. The point is to fuck up and find out things about how you're fucking up to where you can fix it. So when you fuck up finding a note based on this ear intuition, only one of two things can happen. You either play an interval that's too big or too small. So if you're descending, a note that's too low is too big, and a note that's too high is too small. If you're ascending, it's the other way, right? So what you have to notice is how you're fucking up. So let's do something that I'm likely to fuck up, something with like big intervals that I have to teach myself how to hear. Maybe starting with, I don't know. That's diatonic. I'll add a chromatic thing to it. I can kind of hear it starts on the 5th. See? I was going to go for the 3rd. I hit the 2nd. It should go. So what did I do? I went. When I went back here, I went too small. It was a big leap, and I undershot it. Mental note. I undershoot some things. Okay. Now I can start intellectualizing it. That was like the 5th, the root, the 3rd, sharp 2, 2, root 6. I'm in the next position. So I can tell myself, okay, I know that that's the location, but that doesn't mean I don't need to sing it. I'm still going. So what I'm really, here I overshot the beginning, but that's the thing I'm trying to teach myself to get better and better at. Now, when you do these kind of things of moving the same melody into areas of the guitar, I'm fucking up all the time when I do it. You should fuck up too. It's about fucking up. It's hard and it's designed to make you fail, right? It's just like working out where you get to that rep that you can't do, and that's where all the change happens. You have to push yourself to your ear's limit to increase trust and freedom. This is the key. You have to trust yourself to find the notes that you're hearing in your head in time, and that's how you do it. So it's not about being in this place where you mess up and then you're like, oh, I'm just gonna think what that note is and not mess up again. It's about jumping back in the ring and manually operating the car every time, right? So you gotta do this thing. In the next area. Take your time and send the audio signal and really feel where the finger wants to go against the chord. But it's all about against the chord. This is the thing we're hearing against. In that D form. Where is it, right? It's maybe so I can go through every area and find that little thing. As you get more and more chromatic, let's say I'm putting together some bebop-y kind of lines, it's just the same shit. Let's find out. Here's another idea. Na na da da di da do ba ba da 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 ba da bi a do do da. What was that, right? Ooh, bluesy, right? A little chromaticism in there, a little bebop. Bo-do, bo-da-be-a-bo. Intellectually, what was that? Well, that was the sharp 2 to the 3. Approach note. Do-do-do-da-di-di-da-di. Ooh, that's even nicer. Approach note, then enclosure on the top note. Do-do-do-da-di-di-da-di. That's a real nice place to take a shit. Ooh, that's a line I can practice. So approach note to the 3, 5, then it's a whole enclosure around the root. I'm going 7, 2, flat 2, 1. That's a bebop enclosure. Approach, neighbor, double neighbor, resolve to the root. And then ends on the 5th. Okay, I'm gonna find that in the A form. Sick. Okay. That's a really weird place to play that. Maybe I can go, that's a nice place to play that. Maybe an octave up. Do I have it? I think I do. So it starts, again, send the audio signal again and again and again. Up. That's cool. Now, when you see saxophonists or pianists do it, it's like big tits on a fat chick. Nobody gives a shit. Of course they can do it. You can just, find it. There's one place to play the notes. On the guitar, it's a whole other challenge. We have these notes all over the place. So to hear on the guitar is way, way harder. The next area. Right? That's not a typical place to play a line like that. Look at how this enclosure is split between 2 strings. It's really hard to hear that way. Right? But you're teaching yourself this trust of the locations of where the notes you're visualizing in your mind's ear are, or audiating, I guess is a better word. Supernatural place to play that line. Right? So that happens right away with my playing. My fingers have this sense of, just flow when the fingering pattern makes guitar sense. But that doesn't mean that you're excused from checking it out on everywhere the harmony is laid on the guitar. Now, according to Joe Pass, who is pretty good at the guitar, so you should trust him, we only have 3 types of chord functions that we can think of broadly to express every single jazz tune in existence. We have major chords, which are major 7th chords, typically just Ionian sounds and Lydian sounds. We have dominant chords, which are altered, symmetric, diminished, all kinds of mixolydians. A lot of the augmented sounds you hear, like the whole tony kind of sounds, and the altered sounds are built on an augmented triad, not necessarily a major cage triad, but in that family. And then we have minors. Those are the 3 types of chords to think about. And major and minor caged are huge stepping stones into understanding all of these sounds. Eventually, you want to get augmented caged too, to be able to play altereds, but we're not going to cover that in this lesson. But let's take a look at minor sounds. Now, if I take a look at a D minor, I have my caged positions. Here's a D minor form for a D minor, a C minor form for a D minor, an A minor form for a D minor, a G minor form, and then an E minor form. If I turn that into jazz chords, as opposed to just triads, here's a D minor 7. In that area, there's a lot of chords you can grab here that all sound pretty nice. In the C minor form, you never grab this, but you have this guy, and this, and this, and this, and this, right, and that. In this A minor form, you have this, this, these, this, anything from the mode, not just that. In this G minor form, you can grab that guy, this. People play these sus chords. There's all sorts of shit hiding there. These blocky things on the bottom. These, shell chords. In the E minor form, you have this. I'm just using Dorian, like it's a 2 chord and a 2-5-1. But then I'm back in my D minor. Same exact principle. To see that same scale I saw before, the C major scale, but now I see it in these, full octave shapes inside the cage. So the D form contains 1 octave, D to B string. Now, I want to see the rest of the scale too, but I want to also understand that when I'm playing on a D chord, that rest of the scale is hovering basically underneath home. I have do da 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 da. Right? It's kind of like what bassists use to kind of like color and get back to home. Like the way you would use it is understanding that there's a gravitational pull to the beginning, to the 1, right? But you want to hear right? And then inside the C form, this octave. Inside the A minor form, this octave. So it's places to hear the scale, but it's the same scale, right? And it's in the same register. Also in the G minor form, from here to here. Now, it's not about memorizing fingerings. If you ever find yourself memorizing fingerings as you go through this practice, you're not sending that audio signal. It's about do-do-do-do-do-do-da-dee, and then have this left hand of the piano be the guide for the sound. It's contained by it. These are containers for sounds, right? You have this area of the G minor form. It's kind of high. If you can't audiate that high, either sing it an octave lower or just imagine where the notes would be in your throat. Right? It's inside, but I'm still sending that audio signal. A lot of time people are like, are you really singing everything you're playing when you're playing fast? Not singing, but the place underneath singing. Like you wouldn't go up to Ella Fitzgerald and be like, are you really singing all the things you're singing, right? It's like, it doesn't make sense when you're talking to a singer, but singers still have to generate pitch. What is the place in the brain that sends the audio signals? That's the place you're trying to train. Singing is just the closest proxy of that place. You can make it its slave, but also it's limiting because you have limited range. But you could still send the signal without actually making the note come out. Just check it out. Do something super high from, like, let's say this D to this D, right? Or this D to this D. I played an F. But like, then this D to that. Can you hear that octave? Here, it's going up in your imagination, but it's following a physical place. I made a whole lesson about that. You should check out that ear training lesson. But in any case, that's the basic idea. Now, moving minor lines, it's exactly the same concept. Let's find a couple. Now, something that's really cool that you can do, and Barney Kessel talks about this, is you can play a chord voicing and savor it like a dish of food. Imagine you're in a restaurant and a waiter just put a dish in front of you, and you just take a minute to smell it. Do that to a jazz voicing by arpeggiating it with your voice. Go. Can you hear that? Can you play a voicing? If you can do that, take that thing that you just smelled and make a line happen from it, right? So let's make some lines. Play a voicing. Sniff it. Right? The top is the easiest to hear. Let's come up with a line. That's my line. Let's find it in the next area. Now, don't be afraid to intellectualize. Think 5, flat 5, 4, flat 3, 1, flat 3, 5, 4. But those are soundless things. They might get your fingers closer to the thing, but that's not at the forefront of your thinking. It's there's an intuition, a tactile thing that's guiding you. You can feel it around that A minor, can't you? Around that G minor. You see it? Like, it's a tactile thing. Fuck yeah. That's cool, right? Let's try to sniff out something from, like, maybe a more colorful voicing, like that's 6. What was that? Enclosure around the 6 of the D minor, Dorian. 4 flat 3 1 2. Ends on the 2, starts on the 6. Cool. Next area. Well, here, let's first of all find that 6. Maybe I'll do it an octave up. That's cool. I sang it in my mind again when I played it again. I'm not trying to sing it, then find it. That's the thing connecting me to the moment. Right? In the next area, I'm trying to visualize it here. There's like this thing where my fingers are not sure where that note is because it's so odd here, right? Check out, that's a strange intuition. in the G minor fret. That's a part of the challenge of this instrument. Ah, that's really fucking weird. Right? But that's the exercise. It's to develop that trust when you're here. Ah. See, I stopped sending the signal and I was like, what am I doing? I'm trying to not memorize the fingering. By maybe changing where I find one of the notes. Okay, next area. That's so intuitive for me here. Because I can really hear much better in that E minor form than the G minor form, right? So hearing on the guitar has to do with how well you're understanding the backgrounds, right? You can do it on the D minor form, which is right here. So maybe intellectually I know like the 6 is right here. To find the 4 was really that's something that, like, you know, I realized that my mind was telling me where the location is in relation to the root, that's a perfect 4th, before I could really hear it, right? So this is a good example of where like information and knowledge intersect with hearing. It's not like you need to block off all your other senses like you're in a deprivation tank and you just use your ears. But the ears connect you to the moment. Always have that audiating thing on and leading the way. Everything else is a secondary layer of knowledge. You get it? Okay, let's talk about dominance now. Here's G caged. I have, just like C caged, G form, E form, D form, C form, A form. Now what we're going to do is we're going to look at symmetric diminished inside each one of these. So inside the E form, the way I want you to think about this is first and foremost, find a G7 arpeggio. Go. Now fill up the spaces in between with diminished scale notes. So on the way from the 1 to the 3, you have flat 2 and sharp 2. You have do do da da do da de. So a half step above the 1, 1 tension. A half step below the 3, another tension. A half step below the 5, you have the sharp 4. And a half step below the flat 7, you have the natural 6. All a diminished scale is a dominant arpeggio with a flat 2, meaning a note above the 1. A note below the flat 7. A note below the 5th. And below the 3rd. So it's an 8-note scale, but just think that every one of them has a relationship with a specific arpeggio tone. Okay, well now I can fucking paint, right? So that's pretty cool. So I can go just play an arpeggio and throw one of those notes. That's pretty cool. Okay, that's area 1. Now around the D, where's that same idea, right? In the D form, in the C form, in the A form, in the G form, and I'm back, right? That's all 5 places. Cool. So you can do that thing with any scale as long as you understand the thing it's going on, meaning just the basic chord and where the notes are. And when you input that scale into your ears, right? So this is the scale. But if you just play scales up and down, again, you're going to stink like shit. Nobody's going to want to play with you. It's like the equivalent of being a painter, having a palette of color and being like, instead of holding a picture in my head, I'm just going to flip it around and smear that shit all over the canvas. That doesn't really work too well, right? So you want to be able to make ideas from the voicing. So let's savor a diminished voicing. We are or we can add chromaticism just like we did with any other scale. People kind of, when they're playing diminished, they're so they're keeping their diminished diaper on, but they don't know where to put the shit, right? They just don't understand when they get the urge how to use it because it feels complicated. But just have an idea. That's a diminished idea in my book, right? Okay, how do I see that on this D? Well, let's start from the flat 9, right? I have that. Oh, shit, that's. Here it is right here. Maybe play a voicing that inspires that idea. Here, maybe something with a flat 9 there, maybe. Play it here. Maybe something with a flat 9 here looks like this. Right, and I'm back to the beginning. That's how you hear. Now let's try to hear over a 2-5-1, putting everything we did together, because we did D minor stuff, G symmetric diminished stuff, and C major stuff. So just come up with a line that like is now defined by, restricted or constrained by harmonic rhythm. I have this much time on the D minor, this much time on the G7, and this much time on the C. Now again, take voicings that inspire lines. Here's a good example. D minor with A on top. That's called a guide tone line. Now, a guide tone line is when you have this slow-moving line through the changes that sort of gives you this jumping off point for your ear to make lines. So maybe I'm gonna go really simple, like okay, let's hear that in the next area. I got, that's the first line. Then I have this. Okay, that's pretty cool. I have this. Where is that? Maybe it's. Just moving through caged, right? I have this. Last area. Right, that's. And then it's. Right, okay, so that's a pretty, you know, I'd say boxy line on each chord. You can come up with something that's more weaving through the chords. If I go like, one line through all changes. That's a pretty diaper on kind of line, right? Everything is just the scales. Maybe that's something you want to do in the beginning, not add any chromaticism, but just have something that's elegantly moving through it. No passing tones. I'm going. Next area. Pretty cool. And then finally I got this some of these places are way more natural to hear than others. Now let's do something that's diaper off, adult jazz man, you know, just shit wherever you want. Like I'm walking down the street, I'm like, oh, I feel something. Here's a McDonald's. Pants down, take a shit, wipe, continue on your walk, right? Here's an adult line. You got this. Something like that. You know, you can find something like that everywhere. When you're playing, this exercise of taking something and moving it through all position, it never gets redundant. It always works on your ear. It's just something you have to spend time with and see where you're messing it up. But that's how you put it together. Now, these guide tones are a really nice way to get inspired by the voicing you're playing. Now, you're not going to play the same exact stuff you would in this position and in that position. Different voicings will inspire different kinds of behaviors. The idea is to work at being connected and not having the mistakes you make eject you from your playing to where you stop audiating and start relying on some safety net type mechanism like intervals or note names, stuff you know will work, but you have lost your connection to how the music comes out of you. You need to play from a deep place or nobody's going to give a shit ever. It's not interesting. So I'll just play over a 2-5-1 for a little bit and try to ear out some lines. That's like a freer exercise where I'm using many areas, but I'm still trying to see how everything I'm doing is related to that chord underneath. This was a long, deep lesson. If you want more on this, we have so much more on our Patreon. Please join the community there. If you leave a message below, we will pick one of your messages and give you a free week on our Patreon. Also, please subscribe to the channel, click the like button, leave a comment on the live chat if you're watching this live and on the actual video, and we'll see you next time.